Okay, so I've been asked to do a video on how I'd introduce tacking up and specifically the girth to a horse that is being very girthy. So it goes without saying, girthiness is normally attached to some sort of pain or discomfort. So we need to get the saddle checked. We need to check the suitability of the girth because the girth channel might be different where the muscles are sitting, etc., etc., etc. And, you know, in a mare, we certainly want to think about the hormones when it is in their season, if it's the first season of the year and the last season of the year. All of these things can add up to make more discomfort. And then finally, you know, the big bad one is ulcers. Horses don't generally tend to be funny about the girth unless there's something wrong. So this is once that's all been checked out, not before. Or if you've got a horse that's just generally a little bit crabby, maybe got forced into it a little bit when it was younger, or there's no reason to suspect pain. But we can never rule out pain because horses are evolutionarily designed to hide pain. So by the time we see it, it tends to be too late. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm always going to introduce it to a horse out in the open. I'm not going to have them tied up, and I'm not going to have anybody hold my horse. Just a couple of points on where I'm going to stand. If my horse tends to get crabby and swing a back leg at me, is I'm going to want to stand right about here. I'm going to keep my hand on the rein at all times, but I'm not going to hold them. The reason I'm not going to hold them is I don't want to pin them down. If they're unhappy, I just want them to be able to move away from me rather than towards me. So if he was to swing his hind leg towards me, is I bring his head round so that his bum has to move away from me. Likewise, from that position, if he's going to swing his head round, I can just negate it by putting my hand up high here. As long as my hand stays up high and I keep my arms straight, the horse can't actually swing his head round to bite me. And so I can negate the unwanted behavior so that I can acknowledge it and not move on until the horse is willing and ready for me to move on. I think that's the really big point here, is I'm not trying to force anything on him as quickly as possible. Sadly, I don't have anything that's going to be reactive, he says confidently, to saddling to be able to show you on a horse. So we've got a 16-year-old here that's only just come back into work. Okay, so it really is going to be a step-by-step approach where it's going to be offered to the nose first, and if there's no reaction or a positive reaction, great, I'm going to click and I'm going to reward. So when I get what I want, which is engagement, I'm going to click and I'm going to reward. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is rub the neck, then the shoulder. Now, when I'm going to put this on for the first time, I'm not going to try and sneak it on. I really don't want to get away with anything. I want the horse to know what's happening, really know what's happening. So I'm going to rub, and as long as he's not reacting, I'm going to rub, I'm going to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, and I'm going to throw it on. If he's reacting, I'm going to back off him. So if I go like this and I get a flick of the hind leg, or the head comes round, or he pulls a peculiar face or tries to move away, so what I'm actually going to do is stop and stay where I am until that goes away. I'm not going to push on, and I'm not going to particularly back off too much. If it's a very extreme reaction, for instance, on some horses, you get to here and you start getting a reaction, that's when I'm going to go, okay, I'm going to listen to you, and then I'm going to go back. So I'm only going to give a quick pause before I take that step forward again. Okay, so once I've gotten to a point where they're just standing like this, I'm actually going to go over their bum, over their neck. I'm obviously going to do everything on both sides. I want it to be really flicky. Don't want to get away with it. If he's going to get upset, I need to know he's upset. If I sneak around so that he can't tell me how he's feeling, I can't help him feel better about things. Okay, so obviously, like I said, we're going to skip through some bits because this horse already knows all of this. And the interesting thing is really going to be the saddle and the girth. Is, again, when I put my saddle on, I don't want it to land heavily on the back, but I also don't want to be sneaking it on. So I really do want to get my horses really comfortable with everything that's going on, which means I've got to give them the opportunity to say no and move away.